The last 21 seasons of Family Guy is repetitively the same thing, show after show after show, until this episode came along, and then there were fewer parts 1 and 2. The horrifying tale of these 23 people trapped in a mansion during a storm, and someone at this table is a liar. On September 26, 2010, Season 9 kicks off with a totally different Family Guy than we're all used to. Of course, the Family Guy we all know and love is the humorous, sick, twisted life of the Griffin family, but it doesn't take long to realize that these two episodes don't follow suit. Typically, we're entertained by comedic and fast-paced storylines. However, this is the one and only time Family Guy has shifted out of the comfort zone of their roots. The story takes place in the Rocky Point Manor outside the town of Quahog. We see all of the main and supporting characters attend a fancy dinner and a night's stay at the mansion hosted by television star James Woods. This story takes two 23-minute episodes to tell the tale of 6 individual murders in this mansion. And the suspenseful part is, the killer is amongst someone in the group. Warning, there's about to be some spoilers. Before we dive into these episodes, it's notable to mention that the killing off of these 6 supporting characters was permanent for Family Guy. Unlike all other episodes, death is not taken so literal, as it's usually just used for humor in the script, but in this case, the characters were never to be seen again. To get some backstory as to why we're all in tuxedos and trapped in a mansion together during a storm, we need to go back to the first couple of minutes of Season 9, Episode 1. The show starts off with a typical beginning. We see the Griffins seated on the couch in the living room. Peter comes to the front door with a mysterious letter from an unknown sender. He opens the letter and finds out that he and his family are invited to a gala dinner in his honor at the Rocky Point Mansion. Without raising any suspicion to the letter, the Griffins pile into the car and begin their drive to Rocky Point. The next thing we see is their car pulling across a large bridge into the forefront of the mansion. A couple things to take away from: 1, the mansion is located on an island connected by this bridge. 2, the island is hundreds of feet high from the ocean surface. And 3, there is an eerie feeling right off the jump. The cinematics in this episode are unlike any other. Anyways, they arrive at Rocky Point, and before much dialogue can develop, we see Joe and Bonnie arrive in their car too. They proceed to explain to Peter that they received a letter invitation in Joe's honor, when Peter's mysterious letter told him that the dinner was in his honor. As the characters all scratch their heads, Quagmire and his girlfriend Stephanie show up. Then Mort and Muriel Goldman. Then Diane and Tom Tucker, and the literal rest of town. And you guessed it, they all received an invitation letter being manipulated to show up to this gala. They collectively walk inside the mansion, and not much happens for a few minutes. The town gets comfortable at a very large table in the dining hall when James Woods and his companion Priscilla enter the room to greet the guests. A small commotion erupts, but Woods explains to the town that the dinner is in all of their honor, and that he's just happy that everyone has gathered at his mansion. Before James takes his seat at the very end of the table, he quickly excuses himself to the bathroom. During this time, there's some small talk across the table, and we see Quagmire's girlfriend Stephanie stand up and switch to another seat. Not just any seat, she sits at the end of the table where James Woods is supposed to be seated, and unexpectedly, a firearm goes off and she is shot and killed in the chest. At this point in the show, much suspense has already risen. Why was the whole town lied to? Why is somebody murdered without reason? And who exactly is behind all of this? And let me tell you, it gets very interesting from here. As a Family Guy fanatic, I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. The guests immediately suspect James Woods is the murderer because he was the organizer of the event. They make a run to their vehicles outside. At this point in time, the weather has become incredibly violent. And remember that bridge I was talking about? The guests find themselves out of luck when a gigantic tree falls from above onto the bridge and breaks it in two. They're left with no other choice than to re-enter the mansion for shelter. As the guests chat amongst themselves about no cell service and trying to find a way out of this, James Woods appears from the bathroom, and he seems clueless to the past events. The guests corner him as they suspect him as the murderer of Quagmire's girlfriend. During this time, lightning strikes the ground outside and the power goes out for a few moments. The lights come back on, and James Woods is now dead on the floor with a steak knife in his back. At this point, we know that somebody amongst us is the killer. and make a quick mental note of what's to come next. At this point, Priscilla has passed out from shock, so the guests think it's best to let her rest on the couch in the living room. Alright, let's continue. Shortly after, Joe discovers the gun that was used to murder Stephanie. The firearm was mounted on a shelf where it was timed to release fire at James Woods, yet he was gone to the bathroom, and Stephanie was in the wrong place at the wrong time. So at this point in the show, we know that somebody in the room wanted James Woods dead. The group soon finds a hidden vault behind a bookshelf where they find hundreds of empty painkiller containers, all prescribed to James Woods. And what do you know, they're prescribed by Goldman's pharmacy. This gives the guests reason to immediately turn on Muriel Goldman, as her pharmacy company is notorious for making under-the-table negotiations. They back her into a corner, and once again, the lights flicker off for a few seconds, and by the time they come back on, Muriel has left the room and nowhere to be seen. We're now under the impression that the killer is Muriel Goldman and that she is freely roaming the mansion. We soon learn that this is not the case. The guests split into teams of 2 for faster coverage in their search for the killer. Suddenly, Brian and Stewie stumble across Muriel's lifeless body in a hallway on the main floor. This causes much more commotion between everyone as we're now down to 20 suspects. At this point in time, the group is turning on each other like a bunch of wild animals. I just wanted to point out that Family Guy is genius for creating an episode as such. It's obvious this is a cliche because we've seen identical storylines in Clue, And Then There Were None, Murder Mystery, and more. This is overused in the entertainment industry because it clearly works. Suspense keeps the audience engagement held closely as we're all trying to analyze the events and theorize the killer for ourselves. And who doesn't like a good plot twist, right? After the discovery of Muriel's passing, Derek realizes he has 1 bar of cell service on his phone. The signal is faint, so he makes a trip alone up the dramatically large staircase to stand on the balcony in hopes of making a phone call to the police. During this scene, we see Derek is gashed in the head and pushed off the balcony by the killer, but from our angle, we're unable to identify the suspect. Bang, we're down to 19. After the group finds another one dead, they collectively agree that they can't split from the group, and whoever decides to do so will be suspected as the killer. So in a huddle, they begin to search guest rooms for clues. After a few investigations, they land themselves in Tom Tucker's room with all the evidence they need to call him the killer. The bloody object used to concuss Derek, the knives that stabbed Woods and Goldman, as well as now Priscilla's dead body hidden in a ceiling tile. They were down to 18 suspects, and all signs were pointing to Tom. They tackle him down, the weather passes, and the next day, the police arrive to carry him off the scene. Finally, all of these mysterious events are solved by teamwork and elimination. Until... Did you really think it was over? On the way out of the mansion, Lois catches Diane Simmons in a lie. It turns out that James Woods was getting Diane replaced from Channel 5 News, as he requested a prettier face to take over the role. Diane didn't take this well, and seeing that Woods was head over heels for Priscilla at work, Diane convinced Priscilla to seduce James Woods and persuade him into whatever she wanted. It's simple. Diane gave Priscilla the orders, and Priscilla sweet-talks Woods into hosting this gala dinner. Diane's mastermind plan was to have Woods murdered and frame her now ex-co-worker, Tom Tucker. The secret's out, and Diane is forced to murder Lois too. She walks her to the edge of the island with a pistol and points it to Lois's head. Bang! The shot goes off and Diane is dead? That's right, we pan out to see Stewie on the top of the mansion with a sniper rifle as he buries a shot in Diane's chest. Oh, plot twist. This episode caused much controversy on Reddit, as it's unlike all other Family Guy episodes produced. Many said that it was their favorite episode ever created, as it was a great story to use to kill off some of the old characters from the show. Many others said they can't stand this episode because it goes against everything Family Guy is ever known for. There was an actual structured story to pay attention to, and remarkably less humor. Personally, I think that this episode shines, because it shows us that Family Guy is capable of creating much more than sit-down comedy. I'd love to see them make another spin-off of a cliche, and use it to their advantage in developing the show. After all, 21 seasons is an awful lot of shows, and at some point, the show is bound to get stale. I believe episodes like these are a step in the right direction for keeping a series interesting. If you've watched this episode and agree with me, let me know in the comments section. This is Stronghold Below. Please like and subscribe to help me grow the channel, and check out my last video here.